You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking with James Snyder, who has served as the director of the Israel Museum since 1996. In fact, he launched a campaign to double its endowment to $150 million and has seen a series of upgrades and enhancements for the museum, which I hope many of our listeners have had a chance to walk through and see themselves. James Snyder, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on the show.
Before you became the director of the Israel Museum, you were at New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. Can you tell us some of the differences in running the two museums?
Actually, I was the deputy director at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and my entire professional career, actually, before coming to the Israel Museum, was at MoMA in New York. Differences. Well, in the first instance, and perhaps as the most significant point, I was trained as a modern art historian, and my whole life before coming here was about 1850, and looking forward to the present from 1850 and thinking about what happened in the half century after 1850 that allowed modernism to occur. And once I got to the Israel Museum, I sort of turned and looked in the other direction, and I realized that there was 1.5 million years of the unfolding of world material culture which allowed modernism to happen. It was like opening the floodgates to contemporary visual culture and visual culture in our lifetime today.
That must have been quite a perspective change.
Yes, it was rather a substantial one. And the other point is that MoMA, of course, if you know it, is an urban museum. It sits on a very tight site in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, and it has a very small sculpture garden, half an acre actually, which nonetheless is a very iconic place, not just at the museum and not just in New York, but for the world of modernism, because it's as if it is a fountainhead of modernism on this postage stamp-sized site in the middle of Manhattan. And I came to the Israel Museum, and in a way the reverse was the case. Here we have this magnificent 20-acre site, cresting at an acropolis overlooking Jerusalem as you enter the city from the west, and it is as if modernism erupts from the ancient rocky landscape under this 20-acre site.
So as the director of the museum, a big part of what you're doing is dealing with increasing the value of the museum itself. One way is through fundraising, but another way is, of course, through actually owning properties that are increasing in value. How do you do that?
Well, we see it from a different perspective, I think, although perhaps it comes out with the same bottom line. I think, at least for me, the role and responsibility and indeed privilege of being a museum director has a lot to do with exploiting the value of the power of a place of culture. And if there were some one thing that brought me here and that sort of made me put a life in the U.S. on hold and come here, it was the potential of the site and setting and architecture and landscape and evolving collections of the Israel Museum that seemed to suggest power of place in a way that you find in very few other settings worldwide. And if we've been involved in a series of kind of capital developments and redevelopments on the campus of the museum over the last 14 years, it has really been about bringing out or realizing that potential of power of place here.
I see. So one of the concept you're describing, the power of place, in fact, is something that I speak to not many, but some aspiring Israeli artists who talk about the fact that they are in the biblical land and talking about the history, and they want to make art as their career. However, as we all know, it's not the highest paying career out there. But do you have any advice for artists who want to make it in the world of I guess it would be modern art because they are modern people?
Well, that's a very good question. I'm not sure that one can give advice. I mean, it's like when people ask what makes a work of art good, and the answer is if when you look at it, it does something to you. If when you look at it, it lifts you up in a positive way. So that's what you say to a looker at works of art. What do you say to a practitioner? I suppose you say you should do something that from a source of inspiration enables you to create. And whether or not it's good, of course, is going to be in the eye of the beholder. So you can't really think about that or worry about that. But you can think about a range of sources that, through inspiration, stimulate you to produce and to create.
But as a museum director, especially at your time at MoMA, how would you determine whether someone was, I guess the goal was to choose people who are representative of the day or of modern art. How are these decisions made?
Actually, it's not about being representative. It's about standing out. It's about standing out, and it's about communicating an idea in a way that is forceful. And, again, everyone's taste is different. For me, and perhaps for the ethos of the Israel Museum, it's about being beautiful. I think we really have a sense that works of art that succeed are works of art that communicate the power of beauty. And we think that the ethos of our place here is beauty, serenity, and composure. And a little bit that has to do with the broader landscape in which we exist, where somehow notions of serenity and composure are a little bit of an antithesis to what you might find around you. So you are drawn to a place like this because it enables you to experience serenity and composure. And if on top of that you can add beauty, you've really done something that perforce has the power of lifting you up.
We are talking to James Snyder, who is the director of the Israel Museum. He's been there since 1996. In fact, when you took that job, you were making Aliyah having never been to Israel before. Can you tell us, a lot of our listeners certainly are Olim, how did you convince your family to do that, and what drew you here?
First, we didn't make Aliyah. We came because I was invited to consider being director of the Israel Museum. In my professional development, I really had come to have a very strong focus on the importance of power of cultural place. I came to see the Israel Museum, and I really saw here an unbelievable potential for a venue that spoke to the point of power of place. And I guess I had been talking long enough to my wife and children about the importance of investing in creating rich places of power that they were willing to go along with the enthusiasm that struck me from the moment that I saw this place to come and try to realize its value to its fullest.
Amazing. Certainly the museum is awe-inspiring to people who come. A lot of times people describe Tel Aviv as Israel's culture capital, yet, of course, the museum is located in Jerusalem. Do you think that's the appropriate location for it?
Absolutely. And, people around here, as you well know, do say that Tel Aviv is the center of Israel, and I say that Jerusalem is the center of the world. We're about universalism. We're about the way that objects of material culture from the beginning of time to the present resonate regardless of when they were made or where in the world, where around the globe they come from. And what better venue for a message like that than Jerusalem, because Jerusalem really is about history from a very long time ago to today, and it is also very much about being one of those universal points of intersection, one of those land bridges where cultures from disparate places met up with each other or meet up or continue to meet up with each other. And what better venue for an institution that is devoted to showing the material cultural heritage of the world and showing how objects from disparate places connect.
Okay, I want to go back to this advice issue before we run out of time. So we spoke about what to do for artists. What about for people who are looking to begin collecting art? In other words, there are those who are experienced players, and then there are those who want to do it also for enjoyment, but also as an investment. And as this is an investment show, I'd just like to touch on this as our last point. What should people look at? What should people be looking at when they want to begin a collection?
If it moves you and it's in your price range, feel free to buy it.
And that's it?
Mm-hmm.
So you have no idea what's going to happen.
If it moves you and you're comfortable with its price, feel free to buy it.
Do you think that some of the gallery owners, there are many, many galleries around, and people wander in and they say, well, so-and-so is buying this art. If you buy it now, the artist is only making a few of these. Surely it's going to double or triple in value. Is there any way people can know that?
I think not. And actually, I don't think that's the reason why. I actually think that's not the reason why most people buy art. I mean, some people have been very lucky. Frankly, we at the Israel Museum happen to have a very, very strong contemporary art curator. And over the last 15 or more years, she has made unbelievable buys. We don't have a lot of money to spend. In fact, perhaps a trademark of the campus renewal project that we've just completed is the way in which it's possible to demonstrate that you can do a lot with a little bit. And in contemporary art, that's really been our modus operandi, at least for the last 15 years. And she has been able to buy things that have appreciated unbelievably in this period. That said, we're not selling them.
Mm-hmm. Does the museum ever sell anything?
We are lucky enough to have acquired them early on and before they were otherwise world recognized, and the multiples in value are astonishing. But that's not why we bought them.
I see.
To answer your question, it's interesting. You don't sell contemporary art as a rule because you don't sell the work of living artists, because museums are not supposed to engage in activity that can affect the value of works of art in the marketplace. And yet it happens that there was a very important contemporary artist called Jean-Michel Basquiat, who alas died young, and we happen to have acquired, one through purchase and one through gift, two works of art from exactly the same moment of production in early 1981. And we decided, together with the donor of the one that was a gift to the museum, to sell the second work to create an endowment for contemporary art acquisitions. And so we did that in the spring of 2008, and we sold a work that was acquired for under $3,000 in 1981 for $14.6 million.
Oh, my goodness.
Enabling us now to have a really rather remarkable contemporary acquisition fund that allows us to spend about $700,000 a year on contemporary art. Now, in the scheme of what many museums worldwide spend, that's not so much money. But for us, it's more than doubling of the amount of money that we have typically spent each year. And our strategy remains the same, to buy with a lot of discipline and focus work by emerging artists that moves us. And if our contemporary curator's eye continues to be as focused as it's been for the last decade and a half, we hope we'll continue to do very well.
I hope so, too. We have been talking to James Snyder, who's the director of the Israel Museum. Could you just tell us what the website is so people can learn more before they come over?
Sure, www.imj.org.il. And if you Google us, you'll see plenty of coverage over the last 9 months since the inaugural of our renewed campus last July. And I urge all of your listeners to come and visit us.
And I urge them as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. A pleasure to talk to you.
Take care.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.